let's talk about this Taibbi. We got to talk about this thread.
Okay.
First off, we know, based upon what Matt Taibbi has written, that there were certain conditions in which he was going to retell or tell the story, I guess, that Elon Musk wants him to do. We know that Elon Musk was the source. Elon Musk was tweeting about the reveal of the here it is. Let's go with the first one. What really happened with the Hunter Biden story suppression by Twitter will be published on Twitter at 5 p.m. Eastern, he wrote on Friday, and that was in the afternoon. Then at 5:20, he said, we are double checking some facts, so probably start live tweeting in 40 minutes. And by we, he meant Matt Taibbi. I don't know why he refers to Matt Taibbi as part of we.
That's not usually how sourcing works.
It's a different style of, like, we are presenting this. And in fact, what he meant was Matt Taibbi was presenting this.
Fighting the authoritarian nature of Twitter by the head of Twitter working with a journalist. That's just like an interesting wrinkle.
And then on his Substack, when Taibbi apologizes for releasing this on a Twitter thread first instead of on his Substack, he says, I understand if you're angry about Substack, I'd be angry too. The last 96 hours have been amongst chaotic of his life, involving multiple trips back and forth across the country. So he's been meeting with Musk, I would assume, or Musk representatives. There's a long story he hopes to tell soon. I'm sure that was interesting. Can't quite anyway. What I can say is, in exchange for an opportunity to cover Unique and Explosive, I had to agree to certain conditions. At the very least,
explosive story.
I'm sorry. Explosive story. We don't know what those conditions are. There was a time where I think Matt Taibbi would say that it's absurd for a journalist to agree to conditions that have to do with what he can publish or where. But whatever. But we know at the very least, one of the conditions was it must be on Twitter, this thing that you release. And we know why that was the case, because Elon Musk is desperate to make Twitter relevant and to get eyeballs on Twitter, because as a business proposition, Twitter is failing at this point. His purchase of it for $44 billion is not going the way that he thought it would.
And he's doubling down on appealing to a specific audience as well.
Without a doubt. And so essentially, the big explosive story is that Twitter executives, there was basically two, broadly speaking, camps within Twitter. There was the content moderation camp and the PR communication camp. And those seem to be walled off because the comms and the content moderation people saw the Hunter Biden story in the Post. At first, they thought it might be hacked materials, yet it turned out, they found out within a day or two, that it was apparently not, that it was just sort of stolen materials. They had a policy about hacking. They were very worried about what happened in 2016, which, of course, was the huge nothingness about Hillary Clinton's emails that turned into the premier story of that campaign. Remember, that started actually from the Benghazi hearings that they had, and on some level was exacerbated or grown through a deal between Bannon's publishing company and the New York Times over this book called Clinton Cash. So there were a lot of people who were concerned about a replay of 2016. At one point, Taibbi says, let me see number 10 first. There's only really two relevant things that I think are most about this from the perspective of how much did government play into it and what were the incentive structures of these Twitter moderators. Tweet number 10, both parties had access to these tools. These are tools in which they could tell Twitter, there's tweets up there that we want taken down.
Yeah, take this down, right.
Now, let me be clear about this. There has never been a campaign, at least a federal campaign, a national campaign, but there's also like congressional campaigns, probably even like local ones, where a campaign has not complained to a news outlet about a story that has been printed or one that is in the works and has tried to kill these stories. How do they kill them? This is a nothing burger, man. Or you don't get the context, man. This is what comms people do. Mm-hmm. This is their job every day. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you that as a reporter, you know this. As a journalist, you know this. Is it worth reporting on? Without a doubt, in my mind, right? Like this is a story that Politico was going to write, but they got argued out of it because the sourcing was weak or because it was a no story or they didn't understand it, whatever. So this happens all the time. There's nothing sort of like unique about it. Let's put it that way. Campaigns do this all the time.
What might make it unique would be if it was something like massive in what they were covering up here with Twitter covering up.
Well, I mean, look, it's a story, but I'm just saying that dynamic is not in any way different. Businesses also, incidentally, do this all the time. But they probably do it with a lot more success, frankly. Bill Gates has probably killed tens of stories over the years. This happens. That happens all the time. So, and there are tools on Twitter that apparently Twitter has given, I would imagine, not just to campaigns, but also to businesses, prominent ones, and to maybe VIPs, where you can get requests to ban tweets. In number 10, Taibbi lays out something that is really disturbing. It is both parties had access to these tools. Now, by both parties, what parties is he talking about? By saying both parties had access to these tools, it almost sounds like both parties are within an equal position relative to our statutes, to our laws, right? Because this is about scandal that he's writing about. For instance, in 2020, requests came from both the Trump White House and the Biden campaign were received and honored. However, now, this is what's amazing to me. He goes on to say the system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts. This is the next one. Because Twitter it was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation, there were more channels, more ways to complain open to the left, well, Democrats, than the right. Okay, first off, this is complete conjecture on his part. Mm-hmm. The idea that there are more people who contributed, who work at Twitter, to Democrats than to Republicans, and therefore there were more people for the Biden campaign to contact is just absurd. Like, it's absurd. The mere existence of more Democrats working in a place than Republicans, therefore the campaign and the White House had an unbalanced channel to Twitter is an absurd claim. It's also completely unsubstantiated, just based upon the contributions of people who work there.
Yeah, like if you donate $20 to Bernie Sanders, do you have access to his comms person?
Or does the comms person know to contact? It's just absurd.
Yeah.
It's just absurd. But let's go back, because there's another problem that is completely unaddressed here. Number 10. Biden campaign, White House. Cut back to me, because I need people to see this. Okay. This is a scale. Biden campaign, White House. What's the difference between these two things?
One is government.
One is the government. He could have said the Trump campaign, but he didn't. He said the White House. That means someone paid by the U.S. government, not the campaign, someone with the full force of the U.S. government, was censoring tweets. We don't know, was this on national security grounds, which certainly happens all the time, right? The Defense Department says, like, oh, you're going to publish these things? That is on national security grounds. We want you to stop and do that, and we're going to get you enjoined by a lawyer. This is the U.S. government using the power of the U.S. government on behalf of a political campaign. Does it get any mention? Does it get? That's not even the supposed explosive part of this story, according to Taibbi. The explosive part of the story was, scroll up, these links. Wait, number 8. Yeah, here we go. These links. By 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team. The reply would come back handled. Boom. And this is what Matt Taibbi had found. These 5 links from these random tweets. Now, Taibbi, he's a professional journalist, investigative journalist, I'm sure, looked up these tweets. Or maybe he didn't and just didn't want to report what was in them. And part of the reason why is because they turn out to be stuff that doesn't seem that controversial that a campaign, or really anybody who had any connection, because we know that this happens all the time. Like, look, something gets bad about written about Ariana Grande, for instance. I just try to come up with a celebrity.
That was good.
Ariana Grande, whoever her agent is, or whoever her public relations department is, it's CAA, or they're gonna they have a contact at Twitter. Not because they've donated money, not because the people in the place have donated money, or more people at Twitter have gone to see an Ariana Grande concert than a Lee Greenwood concert or something like that. Is because they do this professionally, and they have, like, public relations people. It's their job to find out. They'll contact and say, take this down.
Actually, there's like almost exactly analogous example with, say, Jennifer Lawrence, whose nudes were stolen off of her phone. I guess that was a hack because it was from her iCloud. It wasn't from her physical hard drive. But the links that were taken down here were sexually explicit images of Hunter Biden. I think you can make a reasonable case that it's revenge porn, which a majority of states in this country have laws on the books about. Misdemeanor to felony or misdemeanor. It ranges. Some states don't have any laws as well. There is a legal basis also for some of these images getting taken down because Twitter could have some liability.
Well, what are those links? We don't know yet, because Matt Taibbi in the explosive report did just put them up there. Didn't really investigate them. Just put them up there as evidence of information that has been suppressed by the Biden team. What's the implication? The implication is, well, I mean, I'm not surprised that the Biden team has access to Twitter, because everybody does. Matt Taibbi did through Rolling Stone. I'd be surprised if he didn't have. Well, he certainly has access to Twitter now, doesn't he? But by not saying what these links are, just putting it up there, just make it look like there's something really nefarious about it. I'm surprised Taibbi didn't look into it, or maybe I'm not. Here is this guy, Christian Schneider. I didn't know who he was, but it turns out he's from the National Review online. Is that right?
Yeah, and a Cato Institute editorial director.
Okay. So a real lefty. Would it be helpful, he writes, to see what these tweets said? Were they death threats? I checked with the first. These links archived at the Wayback Machine, and it featured pornography and a picture of the Biden family.
There you go.
Okay, that's weird. I can understand why Twitter took that down. Second features video the Wayback Machine cannot play. Wonder if that video coming off of Hunter Biden's stolen laptop, or the information stolen, certainly weren't allowed to have access to it, was a video of Joe Biden taking a handful of money from, Chinese, Ukrainian oligarchs, or if it was one where Hunter Biden is probably doing something nasty. Or maybe it could be just a family thing. We don't know because that didn't play. The other one is, the third is a picture of Hunter Biden's penis. I grant you, there may be a lot of curiosity about it. I'm not going to pretend like I'm completely uncurious as to what Hunter Biden's penis looked like. I have some amount of curiosity about every, mildly famous person's penis, but I don't think that I am deserving. I don't think it's completely out of the realm of, the Biden campaign.
You don't think it's a First Amendment right?
No, I don't think I have a First Amendment right. It's okay for me to be curious, but I just don't think I have a right to see this on Twitter. The fourth link, not archived by the Wayback Machine, so we don't know. It would have been nice if the journalist who was presenting this as explosive evidence of something had actually done this work, but he didn't for whatever reason. Maybe that's coming in tweet thread number 2. Wasn't that tweet thread number 2 supposed to come 24 hours ago?
Yes, they
but Elon had a problem with it.
Yeah, hold on a second.
It's hard to separate between Taibbi and Elon here because Elon said we're doing this and Taibbi did it. And then we're going to release number 2. And then Elon said, we're going to hold back. Who's the we?
Yeah.
What is this entity, the we? Well, I don't
Truth to
know.
power.
Fourth link is not archived by the Wayback Machine. The fifth link is the same photo of Hunter Biden's penis as a third link with a suggestion the picture of the girl in the background of the photo is underage. Again, curiosity about famous people's penises notwithstanding, if this is a picture of an underage girl in the background, I think there are better places for this photo to go. But the fact that Twitter took these down, I don't think it is evidence of anything other than a moderation system that seems to be working properly. Now, I think overall, the argument might have been it was wrong for them to go so overboard in not allowing people to link to the New York Post story. And I think that's arguable. I think there's absolutely no basis to think that it was going to change the outcome of the election if you knew these things, because here's the other part. What is the underlying story? This is the thing they will never, ever. Look at what he's reporting on is a third order issue. That is not that the media wouldn't report on Hunter Biden's penis photos or videos, because they did. They're not arguing on what Hunter Biden did was in any way problematic for Joe Biden as president, that was implicated Joe Biden in any type of corruption, because there's been no evidence of that. They had access to all this material, obviously. We haven't seen it for some reason. Maybe they just thought, we'll put out the part about Hunter Biden's penis. That will have far more value to us as supporters of Donald Trump than corruption by the candidate himself. Is that what we're led to believe? In the absence of any material of the underlying corruption that was supposedly associated with Joe Biden, why are we hearing these third order and second order stories? The second order story is that Donald Trump's government agencies were skeptical of this material. The second order stuff is that not enough of the press covered this material. The third order was that Twitter would not sanction the promotion of the second order coverage of a scandal which did not exist except for the fact that Hunter Biden has a penis, which my understanding is was pretty big. The story.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe that is a mystery that we need to solve, and it's good that Taibbi's on it. But there is no underlying story or any evidence. Let's say there may be an underlying story, just like there may be an underlying story about anything. But after 5 years, they definitely have access to all that information. We have not seen it. And the reason why we haven't seen it I would suggest to you is that there is no underlying story. And so therefore, everything must be a process story. And this is like every other right-wing canard that they have foisted, whether it was Sharia laws taking over, whether it was the trans ideology is taking over, whether it was the caravan is taking over, whether it was a huge cover-up involving Benghazi, whether it was Barack Obama is not really born in this country, whether it was, I mean, these are all manufactured stories. I think it is perfectly interesting. I would read a 20-page magazine piece, a 5-page magazine piece on how messed up a corporation is with their moderation principles and how they haven't been able to figure this out. Because the real reason is because ultimately is because they don't want to spend the money on people doing this. They want it to be all artificial intelligence, which becomes really bad. And also the policies are all messed up because they want to avoid being seen as publishers. And therefore they have to worry about running afoul of both parties, which is indicated in the story. There is none, and Taibbi says this, no evidence of government interference in what's on Twitter, except for the evidence that he offered and then decided was not evidence, which is that the Trump White House, not campaign, White House was involved in this.
Maybe in part 2.
But part 2 is supposedly coming tomorrow,
Doubt it.
as of last Friday. And now it's Monday. So do we, I mean, if Elon Musk had a Substack, we could go there. I mean, are they doing a joint? Maybe they should just do a joint podcast together and we could see this.
And this contradicts what Taibbi said in August. If you look here, 1 second, I'll just get this up. In August, he said, the laptop is by far the secondary issue. The real problem is the FBI stepping in to cut distribution of true story. And
this he said in August the 26th. And then what's the next one?
And then in number 22 of the files, he says, although several sources recalled hearing about a general warning from federal law enforcement that summer about possible foreign hacks, there's no evidence that I've seen of any government involvement in the laptop story. In fact, that might have been the problem, ...
So in August, he's saying that the only big story here
It's like the FBI involvement.
would be the FBI involvement. Because let's be clear, we all saw the implication, like the main part of this story that was the explosive story about Twitter moderating out and silencing the reproduction of this story. We all saw it in real time. We all know that happened. The only thing that we don't know now is that the moderators did it because they were worried about messing up like they felt they had in 2016, which is probably less nefarious, the least nefarious possible answer you could have. Like the worst one would be the FBI said, you got to shut this down. The second worst one would be, I'm on the payroll of the Biden administration, or if there was like, I really want Biden to win, so we're going to silence all this. Now, Taibbi surmises that they really want him to win and that was their motivation just simply by the fact that they happened to be more Democrat supporters there. And that's why they were operating in that instance. But if we're going to be, if that's an allowable, if you can reverse engineer it that way, we could make that same assessment of Matt Taibbi, couldn't we?
We could.
I mean, it's sad. I understand why he's doing this because I think his brain was broken. And I say that from having some sort of like fairly close awareness of the dynamics. And I think, I've said this in the past. I think he was unfairly accused of like Me Too stuff based upon his writing or his partner's writing. I think he was unfairly accused, and I think that everything that happened to him, specifically around that, was unfair. I think he had written stuff in the past that was misogynistic, without a doubt. I think he had taken at least some responsibility for that, and I certainly think that he had regretted it. But how you respond to those type of things, I think, is also evidence of your mindset. And the way that he responded to that thing that happened to him that was unfair was, to, I think, go down a wormhole where you start to wear contrarianism as an identity. And, I think there's been things that I think, like I say, Matt has written that has been problematic over the years. But I think Matt Taibbi of 15 years ago would have never, I would have criticized this Matt Taibbi mercilessly for promoting what is, look, if there's a story to be had about the content moderation of Twitter, release all the archives. There is absolutely one reason, and there's a naked reason why these set of archives is being covered. Or if you think, and people are like, well, he did release all the archives to Taibbi and Barry Weiss. Let me tell you something. How about not giving them to opinion journalists? They're opinion journalists. Has Taibbi done reporting in the past? Of course. He's an opinion journalist now, without a doubt. And give them to some other reporters. Give them to 20 reporters. Give them to other opinion journalists. Give them to so-called non-opinion journalists. Give the entire archives to them. Make them available so that people come up with their own stories coming out of this. Because I'm sure there's some interesting stories. And if the company's going to do this, I actually think it's a public service, because I want to see behind the workings of this company.
Yeah.
Give us insight into what's happening with Google. But when it's filtered out in this very narrow way through Matt Taibbi's agenda, which is clearly invested in there being something to the Hunter Biden story, Matt Taibbi has skin in this game about Hunter Biden, that all of his protestations over the years that this was so authoritarian and whatnot need to be in some way validated, which is why he's right when he writes there's no government interference. No government interference in the laptop story. Well, wait. What is the White House involved in this? What were they sending? I want to see the specific missives from the White House. I hope somebody's doing a Freedom of Information Act right now.
Yeah, that's a great call.
Yeah.
Because I want to see Freedom of Information Act and what the White House is sending to Twitter. We'll do it for all of them. I'm happy to do that, but I wonder what's holding up episode 2. They thought it was coming within a day. It's been 3 or 4 days. This is an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment.
Totally.
But that's what it is.